October the 2nd, 2021. Guys, you're looking at images that were late this afternoon before sunset in La Palma. Now, they're about 5 hours ahead of New York City on the East Coast as far as your UTC time and as the sun sets. But the lava flows have increased exponentially. At the top of the hill, you're seeing the kind of the middle of the stream that came down and touched the ocean. But now look how wide these areas are, guys. It's like a flood moving through there, and it's telling you there's a tremendous amount of energy in this volcano. It's producing not only a lot of lava, but a lot of ash into the upper atmosphere. The second section that we saw in the earlier video is now producing more lava too, and you can tell that because how wide it gets as it goes down through this area. Check this out. And notice, these are amazing images to me. But here on the very right center side, as this drone moves down, this is from the Institute of Geology in Spain. Notice this large reservoir that built, and now it's cut through that in two sections. So there's a tremendous amount of lava coming down here. And look at this section here, guys. This looks like a new vent opening well below any of the other lava flows. Check that out. Right in the middle of these houses. But again, as we get further towards the ocean, and that's what you're seeing in this movement, this would be moving west if you were on the island out into the Atlantic Ocean. Notice the width of these lava streams here. And this is from that vent we were talking about in the video earlier today. And guys, I had a lot of questions about some of the things I was saying about grand solar minimum and the effects that it has on the Earth's core temperature. And I mentioned these ice samples. They drilled down into the ice in the Arctic and Antarctic, and they can tell, and you see these dark rings, those are years during heavy volcanic activity. That's ash that you're seeing there. And they've got them much longer than this, and we'll look at them. And this builds up over years and years. Here's a little longer one. You can see the different cycles, because normally if you're in the Arctic, guys, you've got rain, snow, ice. And what else? Volcanic activity. Look at this long one here. This is in a museum, and it shows the different sections and the longevity. Notice in the very center how long this particular ash fall fell. And this correlates exactly to this solar minimum. 400 years of sunspot observations. From 1600, the sunspot activity started going down, and you can see these visually on just a telescope, guys, a basic telescope. And this went on for 150 years, modern minimum. Very low solar activity, very high volcanic activity. Now again, you had the Dalton minimum occurring in the mid-1800s up to about 1850. And what I want you to notice is that each of these blue lines, again, represent 11.8 years of solar cycles, starting back in 1600. And around 1955, notice this peak in solar activity. And then 11.8 years later, it peaked here, then here, then here. But now we've been in a declining period. And actually, since 1955, which was one of the strongest peaks since 1600, we've been going into a decline. So again, as your solar cycles decline, your solar activity declines, the shields weaken, because the stronger the solar wind is, it increases the dynamo effect of the Earth and increases the electromagnetic field that we call our shields. As I've described before, the same way if you apply more voltage to an electric motor and then put an EMF meter up beside our electromagnetic field meter, you'll notice as you increase the voltage and the speed increases, the electromagnetic field increases. So the stronger the sun is, the stronger our shields, the less penetration of gamma radiation into the core of the Earth. Now, going back to the modern minimum for a moment, France was particularly hard hit by the winter, with a subsequent famine estimated to have caused 600,000 deaths by the end of 1710. Because the famine occurred during wartime, now listen, there was contemporary nationalist claims that there were no deaths from starvation in the Kingdom of France in 1709, kind of like there was no flu deaths in the last few years. The winter event has drawn the attention of modern-day climatologists in the European Union's Millennium Project because they are presently unable to correlate the known causes of cold weather in Europe today with the weather patterns documented in 1709. And this is according to Dennis Wheeler, a climatologist at the University of Sutherland. He says something unusual seems to be happening. No, it's not. Guys, you've got this new generation of so-called scientists that believe in global warming when we're going through the natural patterns of grand solar minimum. And if you look at more information, the Dalton minimum was a period of low sunspot count represented by low solar activity. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. And if you think about it on the surface, it really doesn't. Low solar activity, global warming, it seems it would be the opposite. But again, high solar activity increases the strength of our shields and protects us from this radiation. But again, this is what we're dealing with. And guys, like the graph on the right there, you can see that during low solar activity, the shields were weak, and in the winter times it became cooler for two reasons. But one was the volcanic ash, because that, again, the radiation was penetrating into the core of the earth. It says the cause of the lower than average temperature and the possible relationship to the low sunspot count are not well understood, but again, I think they are if you know what you're doing. And recent papers have suggested that a rise in volcanism was largely responsible for the cooling trend. It all makes sense. While the year without a summer in 1816 occurred during the Dalton minimum, the prime reason for that year's cool temperatures was the highly explosive 1815 eruption of Mount Tambor in Indonesia. Tambor was one of the two largest eruptions since the birth of Christ, 2,000 years. And are we headed into that point now with the things that we're seeing? Do you realize there's 27 volcanoes erupting now on our planet? More than that are in the orange phase, which could erupt. But look at this. South Pole's most severe cold season on record, a surprise in a warming world. This is from today. While the rest of the world sizzles, this is what happens. 8:45 today, updated. Amid a record hot summer in large parts of the northern hemisphere. Why? Because the shields are weak. Beset by devastating fires, floods, and hurricanes, Antarctica was mired in a deep, deep freeze. That's typically the case during the southernmost continent's winter months, but 2021 was different. The chill was exceptional, even for the coldest location on the planet. The average temperature at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station between April and September, a frigid minus 78 degrees, was the coldest on record dating back to 1957. This was a 4.5 degree lower than the most recent year average as this at the remote station, which is operated by the U.S. Antarctic Program and administered by the National Science Foundation. While impressive and unexpected, scientists characterize this record as a mere blimp, and curiosity as both Antarctica and the planet continue to rapidly warm amid escalating extreme weather. Now, guys, I know most of you can read between the lines on that. They don't understand what's happening. It's global warming. We need to have carbon taxes. No, it's not. They're denying science, but we've seen that happen in the last 2 years quite a bit also, haven't we? Guys, we're watching it. You watch it. Pay attention to the volcanoes. And La Palma is getting very active. We don't know what's going to happen, but remember when this happened before, Tambor, and I'm not trying to put a fear into it, but people, and I've said it, that this is a volcanic island. This is normal. As far as every 50 years or so, or sometimes longer than that, some volcanic activity occurs back in 71. But we were not in grand solar minimum then. We weren't dropping into that. And you can see from the Malter minimum, the Dalton minimum, what occurs during those periods. So just keep that in mind. Again, not a fear factor video, but keep in mind where we are at in these solar cycles. It's a heads up. Be safe.